Basically just getting out of that comfort zone, just doing things that you didn't think were capable. And
Hi, Anthony. Welcome back. So what's happening in your world with the PT scene?
well, starting to get back to normal and starting to get a bit busier, which is good now that gyms have finally reopened. I think we're all starting to get a bit over the whole COVID scenario as well. It's almost like it's just disappeared now. So back to normality, back to training people, and it's actually good to see a large amount of people back at the gym.
Yeah, that's cool. You hammered me on Wednesday, and thank God you did. I've had some sad little puffy ankles, and that's scary for someone 68. And I think it's got something to do with bad diet and sitting in a chair, hammering the computer. So, yeah, I'd just like to hear what you've got for us today. And we've got some good information coming to the viewers in relation to personal training. We've just covered off on some myotherapy and podiatry. So, Anthony, hit us up with your magic. What's today all about?
So today's basically just discussing what obviously the idea of stepping into the unknown. To
Okay.
sort of give a simple scenario, it's basically just getting out of that comfort zone, just doing things that you didn't think were capable, and sort of what stops people and members and clients from sort of just taking that next step, and sort of those barriers that sort of prevent them. And probably more, once you actually get past those barriers, how good it actually feels when you actually step into an unknown exercise or start doing things you didn't think you could do.
Well, I know you've got me doing things that I never seemed possible for my age and within a reasonable amount of time. By the way, I cut up pretty well after Wednesday. I was expecting a lot more pain, but it wasn't there. So that's a good sign that you didn't overdo it for me. But certainly you've got me lifting weights and doing exercises that I didn't seem possible. And I wasn't pushed into it quickly. It took us 6 months just to work out deadlifts. But for that barrier that you're talking about and stepping into the unknown, how do you break that barrier?
Most of it's mental. That's the simplest way. Most of it is mental. It's that mental barrier, and it's jumping to that conclusion of what's worst case scenario and thinking of that first rather than thinking of what's the solution to the problem. And I think with your case, I think when we first started training, you had lower back issues,
That's right.
and most of your thought was, I don't want to do a movement because I don't want to self my lower back. The simple spin with you was, all right, let's find solutions to your lower back problem. Then let's focus on different areas on your body for which your lower back won't actually take over.
Yeah, look, it was pretty cool. And what I really like is that sometimes you'll get me to do 4 or 5 different exercises, which are all just preps for me to go and do that one exercise. So one, I've got the strength and the flexibility and the muscle memory and the knowledge of the technique, but then also that it's all supportive to that exercise, and I'm sort of pre-prepared with a lot of the movement and structure for that exercise. Now that sounds like a lot, but I noticed with the deadlift, just tell us a little bit about the deadlift. I think we took 6 or 7 months before you gave me the thumbs up sign. Why did it take me so long? What was going on?
So with your, obviously with your scenario was basically how your posture was.
Yes.
You had obviously a rounded upper back, which
Mm-hmm.
then obviously then influence into through your lumbar spine as well. Obviously with that posture, it would make it really hard for you to get that deadlift movement right. Just obviously because a few points in your body were slightly out of whack and probably not in that right positioning. And on top of that though, again, your career, working in behind a desk as well, obviously deadlifts would be activated muscles that wouldn't have been used obviously on a daily basis where behind a desk. So it was basically, we had to break down and figure out which muscles were active, which muscles were inactive, trying to get that balance right. And obviously try and wake up those muscles who probably weren't using and weren't working as much in the past, trying to get them awake. So obviously we got that balance right. So then when you started to get into the deadlifts and get movements and exercises that were building up to it, making sure you knew which muscles had to be switched on for you to actually do these deadlifts right. And hence why it did take so much time, because obviously we need to set the foundations right first in order to then link everything up together. So we had obviously those little micro, smaller movements first, grew them into a bit more bigger movements, to which then eventually led into your deadlifts.
Well, it's interesting when they look into, say, NLP in sport and training, that there's so many micro movements, micro muscles, like small muscles and small little nerve endings. And there's thought processes, there's thinking, there's visualization. There's hundreds of elements to just move a muscle. And you say, oh, I'm just working my quads. But then you say, well, why does my shoulder hurt? Because you're tensing your body to compensate for something. Or why do my knees or ankles work? Because you're not over the right angle. I can, in hindsight, look back on all the tutelage you gave me. I'm just blown away. There's probably 1,000 inputs you gave me to just do a simple deadlift. But now that I do it, I can consistently get to the place where you want me. And I train with other trainers, and now they're confident too that I'm producing the same result for everybody. But that took me maybe even more than 6 months. There was lots of stuff that went into it. So how do you establish self-belief that you can do it, break these barriers and go to these places where I spoke to a power lifter. She's lifting some incredible weights, and she said it was a head game. It was all psychological for her. So how do you establish that self-belief?
I think it's growing confidence. And I think it's growing a confidence and having an understanding of where your body's at, and having that knowledge of where your strengths and weaknesses are, to then further establish on obviously what needs to be worked on. But when it comes to the individual, it's actually getting them just to attempt something different as a way to sort of get past that barrier, being able to just maybe do that one exercise I didn't think was possible. Or say in your case with your deadlifts, let's forget about the bar to start off with. Let's just try it with maybe 2 dumbbells. Work on the movement. We've still got a bit of weight. Basically, you're still doing the movement and doing the same exercise. We've just changed the scenario without you lifting the bar. And again, just find a little substitute where you're still having those teaching points that we're working on, but basically all you're doing is working on it from that little scenario and that little exercise. So then once the confidence goes up, you obviously swap the smaller weights and obviously then grab the barbell, the deadlifts. And I know with us, we spent a fair amount of time doing glute bridges in order for you to get your glutes activated. Once you understood how you get your glutes activated, we basically again got you, rather than lying horizontal for your glute bridges, got you sort of in that vertical up and down movement with dumbbells for your deadlifts. Once we then mastered that, guess what? We grabbed the bar, had a go. You had all your teaching points there. You had confidence within your body to know that you had the right technique and the right sort of feeling points in your body to know what was right and what was wrong. And like I said, didn't put any pressure on you. Like I said, if you got it, you got it. You didn't get it, we'll go back on the drawing boards, reassess where we're at, and have another crack at it. And guess what? You got it.
Well, it's really interesting because I used to teach virtuoso guitar. And when I was teaching guitar, I would say to the student, practice slowly, because if you make a mistake, I'm going to put that piece down and practice something else. I don't want you to make a mistake, and I want you to move your fingers so slow it's impossible for you to make a mistake. It was about technique. And I remember you really emphasized the hinge in that deadlift. And when I finally got that hinge and snap, and I could get my chest down with my head in the right position and with my shoulders back pinched. So when I dropped my arms, I kept dropping my shoulders. So it was like there was 10, 15 components to this deadlift. But then to get them all to synergize and work together, that took a long time. But the real powerful thing is when you come up and touch my back and my shoulder, and you anchored in the physiology and said, right there, don't move, that's it. And sometimes we did that looking into the mirror with no weights at all. It's just about pure posture and position and going through the arcs of movement. And I think as a personal trainer, people underestimate personal trainers, especially the really good ones. They say, oh, they've done a 6-week course or a Cert 4 or whatever. But obviously you've really done a lot of study to understand the physiology, the psychology, the structure of posture. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you got to this high level of achievement in personal training? I go to exercise physiologists. They've done a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in exercise science and exercise physiology. But I find you equal to and providing a service that some of these other really profound trainers and holistic coaches who've been doing it for 20 years, they can't provide what you provide. You provide consistency, you provide a consistent strategy towards achieving outcomes that reshape the body. Tell me a bit about that.
I think there's probably three areas that probably obviously link into what you just discussed there. I think one's probably experience. Again, I've been doing it for 6 years, and to be honest, I've dealt with a wider array of members and clients. Obviously from different fitness levels, age brackets, and being able just to work with them and picking up on sort of certain trends that you can pick up on and pick up on the common traits with what they do in terms of not in terms of what the exercise and posture, but just how they go approach it. And eventually, once you expose yourself to how people approach exercise and what their mindset is, you find ways to sort of adapt to different scenarios and adapt to how people feel when it comes to different kinds of exercises. So having that experience and that exposure to sort of different scenarios helps a lot in actually being able to sort of individually cater to different members at a gym or different clients with my personal training. That's what I've probably found is one of the biggest things that's probably helped in helping obviously improve me as a personal trainer, which don't obviously counteracts and obviously flows on to how I train with other people. The second thing is actually doing the stuff myself and actually making sure I perfect the exercise movement and sort of expose myself and try and get a feel for the exercise, the routine, the timings on exercises, different variations of it. Because if I've got a really good understanding of the exercise myself, it makes it a lot easier for me to teach it to someone else. Again, if I'm a bit unsure on it, probably will stick away. I wouldn't stick with it. But like I said, if I've got the exercise down pat, if I understanding of an exercise is as best as it can be, it makes it easier for me to then translate it to someone else. And like I said, all those teaching points and all those cues of what they should be feeling, I can pick up because I've gone through it.
Well, I notice your attention to detail is very high, especially when you're guiding me through exercises to be so specific to check in with me internally as well, where I'm feeling things and what I'm thinking. That's not common. So my assessment, seeing the way you have structured some of your work materials that people get to track their progress, you've created some spreadsheets and things like that. I get it that you could have succeeded in any field that you chose. You're a person of articulate stature. So, what are some of the steps that take into the people into the unknown? What are some of those steps?
I think it's actually understanding where they're at, and it's actually probably understanding where they've come from as well. People tend to have a backstory when they come to a gym. Like I said, there's obviously a reason why they come to the gym. They don't just sign up to the gym for no reason. There's obviously got to be some meaning and some purpose that they want to get out of it.
Yep.
And being able to understand exactly and precisely what they want to get out of it and trying to find sort of an overall target for them to achieve is a really good starting point. But I think people tend to just hold back that little bit when it comes to those initial goals.
Yeah.
They sort of have the idea, but because they haven't had the exposure, sort of just hold back a little bit and sort of don't push beyond what they think. They basically judge that on what their baseline is at the start.
Yeah, the baseline.
And obviously for me is not only trying to get to that baseline, but seeing what's actually past that, and actually seeing that there's probably a lot more potential that they have. It's just that they probably haven't had the exposure, or probably haven't pushed themselves to a point where they've just been outside that comfort zone, or probably don't give themselves that self-belief that they can achieve more than what they think they can.
That's quite profound. I was working out at our clinic today, and we went through a lot of stuff, and I was sweating and puffing and panting, and I was thinking, I'm going to die here, right? But then the end exercise was 30 seconds plank. And then Daryl goes, now keep it going, right? Who's going to stay in the game? Now, they're males there, so there's ego going on, right? We hung out for a couple of minutes, and I never would have done that. I was shaking like this, but I hung in there and kept my posture. And I think with a personal trainer, people don't also understand you are not going to push your thresholds without a trainer. You're just not going to push them. You might think you're pushing them, but that trainer's going to ask for one more, two more. And he's watched your posture. He knows what's going on. He knows it's safe, and he knows it's psychological. Now, some people fail or give up and say, can't do it. But I know in my case, I've experienced both. Can't do it, given up. But I know there's those times, like how do people feel after taking those steps when they've got that, oh my God, I lifted that weight, or I did those reps, or whatever the case may be. How do people feel after taking those steps?
Oh, just a sense of accomplishment. A sense of accomplishment that they didn't think was actually possible. Especially with your case on Wednesday, I got you to a plank on the Swiss ball. And I just said to you, you're doing the plank. I'm not going to tell you how long you're going for. I just want you to hold it, and let's just see what we can do. And like I said, I think you probably just got for the first minute thinking, okay, this is okay. Like I said, I kept looking at the time. I'm like, we still got a bit more in you. And like I said, we held it for just over 3 minutes. And I think your first reaction was, I think you thought it was 2.5. I'm like, you're nowhere near it. You're definitely more than that. But your face when I told you it was over 3 minutes. Like I said, I think there was a massive glow on your face after that, just going, wow, I didn't actually think that was possible. And like I said, it just comes down to how you approach an exercise and how you sort of word what you want to get out of it. And like I said, that scenario was, I'm just going to do the exercise. There's no pressure whatsoever. And let's just see how long we can go for. Like I said, it's hard. Obviously, when you're at your own, you tend not to have those set targets. You just maybe have a number in mind.
Yeah,
And then
number in mind. Yeah.
number is basically, all right, I've reached that number, that's it. And I think that's what it comes to what we discussed in the previous topic, obviously just about selling yourself short. You just, like I said, you have that number in your mind. Once you get to it, that's it. And I think with personal trainers, we can sort of see where that number is, but we can sort of set that number a lot more higher. And if that number, again, if you look comfortable with that number, why not go that bit further?
Well, I know in some cases I've had 2 or 3 reps left in me, and I've done them, and there's been no repercussion, no pain. They were just there. And even that in itself, when you're going for a number and you have that realization that you're not getting the most benefit. I'm not saying going to fail or excessive or even tearing your muscles. I'm just saying there was another 3 comfortable ones there because your strength had increased. Perhaps you had some good nutrition the night before and a good sleep. So even though you think you've got a set level, all of a sudden the strength's there that you were unaware of. It can go in reverse too. But I find your wisdom around knowing where to push and where to pull back and to encourage is very exceptional, Anthony. And I feel very blessed and lucky to learn from you. So tell me, what are the common barriers in preventing people from doing new things? When you think some people just follow your instruction, but then some people got some fear and they pull back. And what are the common barriers that prevent people from doing these new things?
Yeah, like you said, fear. I think, again, especially people that have injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if they've had a serious injury, there's that fear of actually re-injuring. And it's being able to approach the training where you can teach a person how to activate different muscle groups or teach them solutions to the problem that causes the injuries,
Mhm.
and teach them ways with their technique where that site of injury doesn't get provoked or doesn't get involved in an exercise. And then obviously once you get past that fear and once they get that confidence, that enables them to then feel comfortable to push that little bit more. But injury tends to be the first one.
Yeah.
Um, Self-belief as well. I think that's another big one. I think people sort of just go through the motions and sort of just set a number in terms of either a rep, weight, a time. They just set it because they think that's what they can do. And obviously because they haven't exposed themselves to it and obviously haven't pushed to that barrier, I think they just feel comfortable with that. So obviously from my point of view, my job is to obviously figure out ways to try and boost that confidence up. And it might just be, let's not focus on those exercises that you want to try and get to those weights. Let's just branch off. We'll try something different, maybe a couple of different variations, get you trying to build your confidence up on that. So then obviously those exercises can then replicate to obviously those major goals that you want to get. And I think a fourth one's, again, probably just a confidence thing. I
Yeah.
think confidence and maybe even purpose behind training as well. I think them two can work hand in hand.
Like you said the other day, train with
Yeah,
purpose. Remember
yeah,
those comments about whatever you do it with purpose rather
yeah.
than just turn up. Yeah.
Like I said, anyone can lift a weight. Like I said, lifting a weight's the easy bit, but lifting a weight with a purpose and an idea behind it, that's again probably another level beyond where people can get the most out of themselves. Because I could have easily said to you, let's just lift, like I said, with the bent over rows, we can go as heavy as you want, see what you can do. Or like I said, we can stick with a set weight, get how your upper back's feeling, how your lower back's adjusting, and obviously how's your core and how's your base, obviously your stands. And I think we got a lot out of it, considering that you hadn't done your bent over rows in probably 8 months, and that was
Mm.
probably pre-COVID.
Yeah.
So I think it's just that purpose. And I think if you have that purpose, I think you have that better drive, and that sort of self-belief will also increase with it, to the point where I think, again, you're willing to actually do the exercise more. And I think you're willing to put out more in the exercise if there's a purpose behind it.
I think when I approach an exercise with real powerful intentionality about doing the technique correct and feeling it in all the right places, and having the right weighted stance, it has a profound effect. And one of the after effects is some people come out and they go, "I'm a bit sore," you know. Now that's a generalized statement. There's good pain and there's not so good pain. One of the things that I come away with on Wednesday, what's today? When did we train? 2 days ago, right? Wednesday. I come away from that and I thought, I hope I'm going to be okay tomorrow, you know. Now, I had a really cool myotherapy session with Damien. You've got to hook up with Damien. He's amazing, right? So, and I went in there feeling it was just going to be maintenance and there was no pains. And he found a lot of knots and stuff. But here I am today. This is the day where you get the bill for the Wednesday workout. I'm feeling amazing. The proof that you've done the exercise correctly is you're not in pain. The wrong pain. The wrong pain's not there. You haven't pulled something or hurt something. I mean, if there's a little bit of muscle stress, that's fine. So I come away from that bent over row with no lower back trouble today, yesterday, or the day before, no shoulder trouble, which I usually get. So that's an indication the setups and the instruction that you're giving is very specific and powerful. So tell me, how do PTs help people taking those steps to going into the unknown? I think we've talked about it, but I'd like to hear your point of view.
It's obviously been there for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, being there for them, but also helping them get an understanding of themselves. I think that's probably the biggest thing that helps with them trying to get that, like I said, stepping into the unknown and stepping out of that comfort zone. is not only for me to understand where the person's at, but actually trying to sort of bounce that back onto them and actually teaching them where they're at and actually exposing them that they're actually a lot more capable than what they give themselves for. Um, which again comes back to that sort of self-belief and trying to drive that self-belief. But it's being able to drive that self-belief where you're sort of ticking off those little mini milestones that
Mm,
helps build that confidence up. In your case, with obviously with what we did on Wednesday, we obviously the bent over rows was the primary exercise we wanted to work on. But what we did at the start is we did obviously standing flies and lateral raises to start off with, just to help with you, just try and expose and get you to really open up your chest first and sort of get you working on getting those back muscles pre-engaged and warmed up.
pre-engaged, yeah.
Yeah. And which again was such a small movement and a small exercise with obviously not very little weight, but had a profound effect when you went into the bent over rows. And I
Mm,
think leading up into it, getting that right and sort of just getting that sort of mini milestone and you getting obviously your shape right when you were doing the standing flies, but not only that, but helping you just sort of get everything freed up first. So
yeah,
then when you went to bent over rows, again, you sort of weren't sort of thrown into the deep end,
yeah.
but you said had the preparation for you to go into it.
Well, sometimes when I go into, say, the weight we were using in the bend over rows, and I go in cold and stuff like that, I feel uncomfortable afterwards. But the way you set that up with the preparation exercises, that was just smooth as silk. The only thing is, the amount of reps and the amount of sets we did, I eventually couldn't complete the final figure. But I felt I stopped at the right place and it was perfect. We just kept going until I was done. So with what we've discussed today about moving into the unknown, have you got any really cool tips for people out there that can take away from this for themselves?
I think it's just not limiting yourself with what you can do with your exercises. Like I said, I know there can be, like I said, I know injury can limit what you can do,
Mhm.
but there's always different variations of Sunim. And I think not getting stuck to one idea can actually sort of broaden your horizon to other things that you can sort of accomplish. Like I said, not only in the gym scenario, but also outside of a gym scenario in everyday life. Um, and like probably with you was probably more like a pain-free lifestyle,
Yep.
which I think at the moment you're pretty much ticking that off. So not only are you building the strength up, but you're actually, like I said, moving around a lot easier and you're not in that agony of pain. So
Our
I think it's
journey's been 2 years, hasn't it?
three.
3.
Will be
I've been with you
three.
3 years.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
So
cool. That's very cool. What have you seen in that 3 years?
I think you growing sort of in the health industry in the last year has probably been the thing that I've probably profoundly noticed the most.
Mhm.
I think that middle period between years 1 and 2, I think you started to willingly want to be at the gym more and you tried to sort of expose yourself into things that you probably hadn't done. Like obviously with your running, with your swimming, those were probably the two things that you started to try and get back into. And I think on top of that though, I think you were regularly coming to the gym 3 times a week. And like I said, you just basically wanted to be there.
Yeah.
So to go from being a casual person at the gym, because you'd been at the gym previously as well,
Mm.
before obviously signing up with us. And I think you sort of, yeah, but now it's almost become like a consistent lifestyle with you,
It's a
where I think the gym
consistency.
becomes part of your life,
Yeah.
and you actually probably feel guilty if you miss it, which probably just
Well,
shows how.
actually, I've taken out the, more pain, more gain, and discipline and commitment. I go because I like it. I've just
Yeah,
come to enjoy feeling like I do. I've dragged my sorry ass through life for too long, and suffered uh, all the things that being obese causes and 1,000 things, right? Now I feel so vibrant. Why would I give that up? And I think when I see people my age around with walking frames, some of them can't help it. They've been injured or, that's their genes. But there's some people out there my age without an excuse. They've just wasted their inheritance, their legacy of their life and their body. So here we go, Anthony. I think we started down a journey. We did one with you a couple of weeks ago, and that's been a huge hit with the postural correctness. And we've got some more lined up down the track. We're going to do some regular stuff with you. So Anthony from 3 Elements is definitely someone to hit up if you want to get an elite personal trainer. And why don't you consider hitting the bell or like button and subscribe to us so that you can get all the latest tips on health from so many different angles. We've got podiatry, we've got myotherapy, people in the mental health space, emotional health space, so many people coming forward to contribute of how to live your life better. So thanks, Anthony, for today. Really appreciate it. And keep up the good stuff. And I'll see you in the gym next Wednesday.
No worries. Thanks, Freddie. Thanks for it.